Well, we're speaking here today with Deputy John Perry, who's the chairperson of the Oireachtas Joint Committee on European Scrutiny. Deputy Perry, thank you very much for agreeing to speak to us today.
Honoured.
Thank you very much. And I suppose I would start, Deputy Perry, by just putting a couple of questions to you. Starting, first of all, obviously, with the adoption of the Lisbon Treaty, which is now coming into force since the 1st of December, earlier this month. I suppose I'd appreciate if you could just point out some of the ways in which you believe the Lisbon Treaty has democratised the European Union.
I think it's very good news. I think that the whole issue of prior to the 1st of December is what the uncertainty in Ireland and the whole integration within Europe and the whole harmonisation, but I think it's given very important new powers to the European Commission, or equally more importantly, it's given enhanced role to Dáil Éireann and Seanad Éireann. I think that the increased powers will give the issue of the responsibility where simultaneously the documentation will leave the Commission, will come into the Parliament straight away, so that it gives the big difficulty up to now. There was a lot of up to in excess of to 550 directives coming into Ireland, and apparently 98% of them have been transposed into Irish law. And up to the 2006, there was very little scrutiny on any documentation coming into. They were all brought in by directive, or they were coming in then by SIs as well. And I think clearly the fact of the difficulty would be that, answer your question directly, it's given a lot more autonomous role to Dáil Éireann with regards to it's holding the government to account. I mean, it's very much, I chaired the public accounts for 2.5 years, and I know that which was very much holding the government to account on how taxpayers' money was spent. But equally, the scrutiny role is equally important from the point of view it's going to hold the government to account how it negotiates a deal on behalf of Ireland on very important directives across a whole spectrum of society, in every aspect, from the environment to the financial to the industrial to the educational. Every directive that comes in will have it affects the lives of Irish people, so that I think the enhanced role of Dáil Éireann is given more powers to Dáil Éireann, which is very important. Equally, a greater responsibility, I suppose, on the Commission to that they're now accountable, because so we have been fortunate since the Barroso initiative, since 2006. We have very much worked on the I suppose in a very much pilot basis on the issue of through COSAC, which, as you know, you're obviously aware of the COSAC, and I attend the COSAC meetings quite frequently, and I think it's a very important body and has played a critical role. But even the Barroso initiative was very much in pilot. We're very much clearly the responsibility on the government here, or on the Parliament of Ireland, because it's not necessarily on the government. This if you look at and even the amended 2009 Act, which now has given a clear definition on the role of the national Parliament as distinct from the government, I think it's good news.
And I suppose, just turning very quickly to COSAC, which you just mentioned there, do you believe that it has a meaningful role, and is Ireland's voice adequately heard in that mechanism? Could you maybe describe your own experience?
Well, I think the COSAC has been very effective. I think we're equally served by the Irish representative offices at the Parliament in Brussels. We have the effectiveness of having a very effective voice who will work with I suppose his colleagues from other countries as well. They can clearly identify heads up the difficulties that are now that may emerge from a particular directive. But the big difficulty, I suppose, with regards to the time frame. The time frame will be an 8-week time frame. I think it's very important when you take the 15 departments in excess of that of directors coming in, that the responsibility will be on the Secretary General of each department here in Ireland to ensure that within the 20 days time frame, that they clearly identify to the scrutiny committee if they feel that any of the Commission documentation coming in has a difficulty with the issue of subsidiarity, which clearly the definition of subsidiarity can be very vague, the description as well, but it I suppose in simple language it means that any law that's been enacted in Europe, is it in breach of is it an enactment that could have been initiated in the national Parliament, so that if it's in breach of that principle, where if it's not initiating or creating a law that could have been created in Dáil Éireann, then it's not in breach of subsidiarity. But that's another point as well.
And I suppose, I mean, you described fairly well the machinery which is required to work to make this mechanism do the duty it was supposed to do, which is to democratise the Union further, get more national participation on the part of parliamentarians. On the side of your committee for European scrutiny, Do you believe that you're adequately resourced? I mean, you're looking, as you mentioned, at 550 directives heretofore, and no doubt increasing going forward. Do you think your committee is adequately resourced and can do its job efficiently?
Well, I must say we're very well served with an extraordinary, highly skilled secretariat. I think they're doing it. I think the civil service do an outstanding job here. I know from my experiences, I think they really give a huge commitment. Clearly, that is what the issue will be. We're very much on a trial basis at the moment. This is with an agreement there on the December the 10th with the European Affairs Commission, the committee, with regards to the operation of the operation of the new empowerment given to Dáil Éireann from the December the 1st. During that period, with the evaluation, there will be an evaluation carried out to see how effective, in the next 24 weeks, how we deal with issues. Sure. I think that when you look at the committee that dealt with the future of Ireland, the commission on the under Senator Pascal O'Donoghue, his commission on the Ireland's future role in Europe, yes. There was many recommendations. That was in the aftermath of the defeat of the first Lisbon referenda. But on that issue, there are a number of recommendations, I think, that clearly that can be looked at. I think that the 2009 Act is very clear in its mandate. Mm-hmm. There was an Oireachtas motion passed last week, passed by the Parliament, that will give a clear definition and the responsibilities on the role of scrutiny. Our job is to ensure that the documentation from the Parliament comes in, that it's equally important that we work very closely with the departments. And I believe that when you get the commitment of there's a very clear commitment given by not alone by the Scrutiny Committee, by the government and by the Secretary Generals of each department and their responsibility. Sure. So that I think when you take the empowerment, but more important, I think the most important thing is that the people of Ireland, what we want to become, the difficulty would be that we have to become more European in every sense how we do business, because when you look at the impact of directives coming from Europe, it's essential, absolutely essential, that there will be more debate in Shannon here, not alone just in the committee rooms. Mm-hmm. I think that regrettably, when it comes to Europe, there can be, I think, one of the big issues and how people have many of the difficulties and the perception of Europe and his empowerment and his impact on the citizens' lives in Ireland, it was somewhat lost. Sure. I think there's a big responsibility, a major responsibility, on the Parliament of Ireland to ensure that not alone would there be issues of directives on the substance that would be not necessarily on the subsidiarity, but on the substance, a directive that it should be debated. We should have a clearly one day, European Day, here in the Parliament, in the plenary session, because you can have a very effective committee within the Scrutiny Committee, represents 13 members between Shannon Éireann and Dáil Éireann. More importantly, that the 166 members within the Parliament, is more important that they know exactly if a directive is coming in, because unfortunately from the time it leaves the Commission and comes into the National Parliament, it can take a lead in of 2 years. Mm-hmm. In that period of transposition, it's more important that the Minister would be held to account, that parliamentarians would know what's coming, that it is well debated and is carried in the news media as well. So that massive deficit of information, I think the obligation will be on every parliamentarian in the next year and a half to ensure that that deficit is clearly established, clearly put in the public domain and debated in such a way that when the directive is transposed into Irish law, that there won't be the question, where did this come from? Mm.
I mean, I think that's the right attitude, and that's the spirit which I think informed many of the tools in the Lisbon Treaty. And just finally, I suppose I'd like to turn to using that tool. I mean, there's much talk of the yellow card, the red card. Do you see these tools actually being used by the Oireachtas? I mean, it's one thing to talk about them, and it got some debate in during the referendum debates, both 1 and 2. Do you think we're actually going to use this?
Well, with the use of IPEX at the moment, I think that, which is a very good tool as well. I know that.
Would you mind outlining just what IPEX is, please?
IPEX is it would be the coordinator. It would be the body that deals with the whole coordination of all documentation that comes in from the Commission, where you can make referrals from different parliaments. It will be very much a database system, and where that it will be the whole control mechanism very much operated through the COSAC facilitation. But it means that clearly the fact is that I think that Killian, just from the point of view of getting this very clear, that we want to keep it, I think it's very important to keep it simple as well, keep it effective, and it's the whole level of, I genuinely believe at the moment we have 9 countries who feel an issue is of a contentious issue. that it has an issue of its legality, has an impact on concerns of 9 parliaments in Europe, and with the you must remember when you go to the European Parliament, and all of the representative offices, which do a wonderful job and have of every national parliament, but there's very good cooperation. They're very much keyed into what's going on, and clearly when you look at the excellent secretariat, and I believe at the moment when 9 countries have a concern, the Commission they're very much obliged to come back and reconsider. To look at the proposal and maybe possibly reconsider, and then the red card ultimately will be the decision of the elected members of Parliament, and equally the members of it, which is a very important factor as well, because I didn't exclude them by any sense. The new mandate and the new powers given to the European Parliament and to elected, and we're very well served in this country, having across all political parties having excellent members elected, the members of the European Parliament members. They have a huge voice in this, and I think when you look at the right of entitlement of members of the European Parliament to attend the Scrutiny Committee, I think the level of cooperation there, I'm a great believer in the dialogue, cooperation, listening and learning. I think that when you look at the possibilities here, I think that it's we're very much in the transitional period going forward, but I think that when you look at the best practices going forward, I think what people genuinely want the outturn for this at the moment, that we have good law, that we're part of that we're very much, we have the 98% of laws are enacted in Ireland, but it's equally important that the transposition of directives that would have an impact across every spectrum of society, that they're well debated prior, that the government of the day, or that the minister of the day, whichever government will be elected then, can negotiate a position, and that will certainly reflect the views of the elected members of Dáil Éireann and Shannon Éireann. I think it's a very good safeguard. I think it's very good for. I think that it's the whole simplification and the operation of the union, and but the fact that we had the Barroso initiative since 2006, and we operated 5 in a pilot basis, which was very successful. We operated 5 test cases on the issue of subsidiarity, very successfully, I may add, and I think that learning curve has very much left us in a very competent position to deal very effectively with the responsibility that's given out to the Scrutiny Committee. I look forward to the challenges with the test, but more importantly, in the next 6 months, I will be very determined that we'll get as much debate here within the Parliament, and equally more important, I've said it in time again, I think that we need more European information here in the Parliament. I think that is an issue that I feel we have a very effective European office here, but it's removed from the Parliament structure here. Sure. And we have a huge amount of people coming in here to Dáil Éireann, I would say, from every age, but especially younger people, from second level, third level universities, and all coming here visiting Dáil Éireann. I think that clearly what we need to have a more European presence here in Dáil Éireann with more information on Europe, more information explaining the role of the Scrutiny Committee and the European Affairs Committee and the work and the responsibilities, because it's all what we need to do is it's a learning curve, and I think that a medium like this is very important to explain very simply. Our job is to hold the government to account on the documentation coming from Europe, that we check it, we bring in vested interests, private it's not necessarily talking to politicians. We bring people in from the banking industry, bring people in from the health service sector, people from the business sector, how this directive will impact on their lives. And I believe that you're dealing with the whole bureaucratic nightmare that was there in many ways in Europe. We want to keep it more effective, more simple, that people understand clearly where we're coming from. So I think that all of that, taking that on board, and with people who are practically minded politicians who feel and debating issues, it can only enhance the whole democratic deficit and improve democracy in Europe, make Europe more accountable, and make Irish people feel part of the European, that they feel they can now contribute to European legislation at the very embryonic stage, which is very important.
Okay. Well, Deputy Perry, thank you very much for outlining the work of your committee, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.